Let's take you to this discussion now. Moti Group CEO Zunaid Moti has written an opinion piece that AmaBhungane Center for Investigative Journalism deserves a proper clap, in his words. It comes after the group's court battle where AmaBhungane has been blocked from reporting on the so-called Moti leaks. He argues that the Moti Group's legal complaint against AmaBhungane is not about gagging the media, but about media rights boundaries and holding specific persons and journalists accountable for their unethical actions. Zunaid Moti joins us now for more on his opinion piece. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. You say the legal dispute between the Moti Group and AmaBhungane is in no way about supposedly gagging the media. What is it about?
Hi, good evening. Well, I thank you very much for having me. First of all, let me just tell you that I'm not the CEO of Moti Group anymore. It's Dondo Mokhashane that is, and I'm only prevailing here today because at the time when this particular incident took place, I was still the chairman and CEO. So let me just get into it quickly for you.
Yes, please.
The problem I have with AmaBhungane, and I just want to state for the record, I've never ever in my entire career gone off to court to ever try and gag any media of any sort whatsoever. I think that Sam Sol is just being quite naughty to try and gather support around his bad behavior. And his bad behavior was such that he's in possession of stolen goods. It's not Moti leaks either. This is a theft of proprietary information and a whole bunch of documents, which is 4,000 documents. I'm entitled to have my documents back as a group in the company. Can you just imagine if any company documents were stolen today, for example, banks' documents were stolen and they were distributed all over the world and taken out in subjectivity and given to anybody and everybody, they wouldn't like it. I wouldn't like, for example, my banking details being published, which they have done in the last article they've written. In addition, I have my children's birth certificates that were stolen. I have my mother's death certificate. I have my application for visas all over the world, my bank statements. I don't think that's fair to say that, what AmaBhungane has done is correct. They then say to us that they have these materials in an offshore safe custody or offshore electronic version. They don't say they have our stuff. They say they keep all of the information there because they want to hide the stolen product. They don't keep it in their offices. And then all of a sudden they send us pieces of the information, and I'm not allowed to look at what they've stolen. Surely, how do I answer a question if I can't look at the document that you're referring to? And that's one of the issues I have. All I said is, I don't want to know your source. I know your source. Someone stole stuff from us, and they eventually gave it to AmaBhungane. They're holding it. And they're holding it ransom. I don't even understand why they can't show it to us. So in the matter that took place on Saturday, they had no win at all, man. They're not allowed to write about these stolen documents. The judge has decided that. Yes, they're allowed to keep it for now, and that's all that they're allowed to do. They didn't get a cost order against us either. This is not a fight with media. Media are fantastic, and they have every single right to report on things that are of public interest. And I support that. This is just a naughty guy that's, trying to gather support with really credible media sources and trying to put them up against myself, my institution, etc., which I think is very unfair.
So what you're essentially saying, let's talk a little bit about the source that you speak of. I take it you're referring to a former employee of the Moti Group, Clinton Fanikak, who I understand at the moment is under witness protection, apparently fearing for his life because he's reportedly described you as a dangerous man.
Sure. Look, let me just come in there quickly. No one has ever suggested and has given us a shred of evidence or proof that he's in a witness protection program. He was working together with an ex-business partner of ourselves and disseminated those documents to the business partner and to AmaBhungane. There is no confirmation at any level that he's in a witness protection program. He was never threatened. In fact, we helped him buy a Mustang when he was working for us. We paid him well. We paid all his expenses. So, we haven't done anything wrong to that employee, but I'm sure he was working undercover for somebody or maybe for AmaBhungane. I don't know at this stage. But we just found our documents out there. We've been giving a whole bunch of questions all the time to answer, which I just want to point out that at all times, whenever AmaBhungane has asked us questions, we've answered them in the timeline. They've suggested that we answer them, and we've answered them conclusively. Now, they draw these inferences and create these crazy innuendos because obviously that's what they do. They just write bad stories, and that's fine. I answer them, they print them. They inherited this position from a company called The Sentry. And in the previous interview I just had now, they had a whole bunch of questions about Zimbabwe. Yes, I work in Zimbabwe. It's a fantastic country. We do nothing wrong. We haven't done anything wrong, and they haven't been able to prove that we have.
Yeah, because what's essentially been written essentially implicates you in a mining deal with Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa. And, this is the first that I'm learning and hearing you deny that you haven't, saying that you haven't done anything wrong, apart from the fact that the biggest factor, according to what I had read, is that you are really against the manner in which you believe your documents were secured. So now you are essentially saying that are you denying what's been written about your connections with Emmerson and Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe?
Let me be clear, dear. My connections with Zimbabwe is I love the country. I'm an investor in the country. I have a relationship with everybody there, from the people that work in the mining operation to the ministries, to the presidential offices, etc. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So does Anglo-American, so do Zimbabwe's platinum industry, so does Coca-Cola, etc. All of these institutions operate there, yet they're not being asked the same questions. I have relationships with all of these people, and not inappropriate ones, not ones that have created any reason for me to be concerned about bribery or corruption or anything of that nature. And by now, after printing that article, I would have imagined there would be some recourse in Zimbabwe itself if that were true, don't you?
Okay, so you approached the Gauteng High Court for an interdict and demanded the immediate return of the documents. You went to court in secret, though, which meant AmaBhungane was essentially not given an opportunity to be heard, and only learned much later of the application after the judge had granted the order. That in itself raises a few eyebrows.
Not really. There's processes in law. Let me explain to you what resulted in us going to court and the Moti Group going there. The issue was when we discovered they have been denying that they have control of our documents. In the course of last week or a few days before we went to court, we realized that one of the documents they supplied to us, we metadated them and found that it came from our server. So it was one of the first pieces of evidence to show that they actually were in control and having those documents. Had we gone and given them an application non-ex parte, they could have destroyed the documents. They could have put it in other people's hands. And they could have hidden it away, as an example. All that we did, and this ex parte process is not necessarily urgent. If it's set down on a Tuesday, it's heard on a Friday or a Thursday, and so on. The application went in front of a competent judge, unless you're underestimating the competency of the judge, which I don't think you want to do. A judge listened to the details. He understands the risks involved with that. They were served with the application on a Thursday night and asked to return the documents, which is the correct thing to do. On Friday, the attorney wrote and said, listen, we can't do it in the time prescribed. We need more time. Eventually, at the end of the day, we gave them 30 days to return the documents. And then they said, it's not good enough. You must come to court on a Saturday morning at 9:30. Now, no one was dying. It's an abuse of the court process, especially the urgent process. We went there, and the judge gave them a very big flop, as I will say. He said, listen, it's not urgent. These things can be sorted out in the normal course of business. You can hold on to the documents for now. There's no cost order against Moti Group. And another competent court will decide on these issues. What they're trying to do is run away from replying to our allegations in the affidavits that were supplied to the court. They do not want to respond because in the response they need to explain themselves. And that's the issue.
So the journalist lawyer, to my understanding, had said that the allegation that the publication of the information involved received stolen property, they've dismissed that as mere speculation.
Ma'am, let me just stop you and tell you, they wrote to us and they said to us, and I'm going to read from the affidavit quickly for you because I know you're pressed for time. It says, affidavit written by Geerwald, which is one of the directors. We are not, at the time of this letter or now, in possession of any documentation belonging to the applicant of the Moti Group. Our access to such documentation is via servers located outside South Africa. Only one of those servers is subject to the respondent's control. On the one hand, he says, we have no control of these documents. They sit outside of South Africa, and God only knows why they sit outside. They are a subject matter of a South African company. And lastly, that they do have control. They go on to say, we are in any event unwilling to make such documents available to the applicants because doing so would reveal the identity of the sources. We know their source. We're not interested. We want our documents. We want to see what they have so we can answer appropriately. There's nothing wrong. If you've stolen my documents, I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm saying, okay, then show me what it is so I can answer appropriately. You've been sending me all of these documents and little captions here and there, creating innuendos and creating a certain narrative. Stop doing that. They're open cards. Here's a document. What do you think? And they know they... Sorry?
Yeah, so as with your approach to the court, I mean, don't you think that in itself is a violation of journalists' rights to report on matters of public interest or reporting on matters of public interest? Perhaps that doesn't matter to you.
No, of course it does matter to me. It's very important to me, but I also have a constitutional right and I have rights. Are you trying to now say to me that my rights are far less than a journalist? And that a journalist has a right to steal or commit any crimes and use a card and say, look, I'm a journalist, I can do that. That can't be right. It certainly can't be right. If you're part of a theft and you're part of a certain narrative that I don't understand, I need to understand what those are. I have a constitutional right to understand that. I'm not saying my rights are bigger. Don't misunderstand me. But I'm saying I also have equal rights. The fact that you're a journalist doesn't give you the right to publish my bank details, as an example, or go and do a complete investigation, for example, into my children's birth, etc., or hold on to any form of documents of that sort, or create these innuendos for that matter.
Yeah.
On the other hand,
Mr. Moti, for the sake of time, the South African National Editors Forum has also weighed in on this matter, saying that the interdict to stop AmaBhungane from publishing any story is not only unreasonable, but it tramples on the rights of journalists to do their work and the public's rights to know.
Ma'am, it is correct that the public have a right to know. When this particular matter was heard in court on Saturday, I never objected to any journalist being there as an example. They continuously writing articles on me. I'm not gagging anybody. All I said is, insofar as these stolen documents are concerned, can you please give them to me so I can see what they are? Can you please supply them to me and can you return them? You may obviously keep a copy, but give them to me. Have I done something wrong? Am I gagging someone? Have they stopped writing about me? They're continuously writing about me. It's creating a innuendo once again to the public that we're limiting the journalist's power and authority. We're not doing that. I've answered every single journalist in this country. But what I'm not happy with, if you steal my stuff and then you keep it away from me and you alter it or you play with the documents and we cannot authenticate them, how can I deal with them? I've answered all of this stuff. There's been no repercussions from me. I'm not scared of it. I can answer it. But do not create the impression to anybody that a journalist's right is more than any person's constitutional right. That's wrong. And I'm taking them on because they refuse to understand that we also have rights as people in businessmen out there.
Very well. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. But thank you so much for your time there. Former Moti Group CEO Zunaid Moti speaking there in response to some of the allegations that have been leveled against him.